Recording in progress.
Blast off and welcome everybody to our council meeting. Those who braved the weather, my wife and I we let the weather gods decide whether we were going to come in person or not. And since it cleared up, here we are. And so we're happy you're all here. We did get a little bit of rain, not a lot of runoff, but we'll take what we can get. So welcome anybody who's attending online, and also a belated shout out to the folks who do watch this later. You can watch it on go to Monterey.org or city's YouTube, and you can watch this, and you can watch it repeatedly if you ever get insomnia. So before we open our meeting, we'll turn it over as always to our very reliable city clerk, who will explain to people how to participate.
Good afternoon. For the safe attendance of our public meetings, masks are required for all who attend in person, regardless of vaccination status, except those who are younger than 2 or have a medical condition that prevents wearing a mask. Please keep phones and devices in the council chamber muted to prevent audio interference. And there are 2 ways to virtually participate in today's meeting. You may join us using the Zoom app on your computer or mobile device, and you can also call into the Zoom meeting. To join the meeting on Zoom on your computer, smartphone, or telephone, use the link or phone number on the agenda at isearchmonterey.org. An up-to-date version of the Zoom software must be used. To call in by telephone, dial toll-free 833-568-8864 and enter meeting ID 160-772-9333#. And if prompted to enter a participant ID, press pound. Detailed instructions on using and updating Zoom are available at monterey.org/public-meetings. To make a public comment using the Zoom app, you can virtually raise your hand by pressing the raise hand button at the bottom of your screen. If you dialed in by phone, raise your hand by dialing *9 and then unmute yourself when called upon by dialing *6. You must do both. Public commenters will be muted until it is their turn to speak. I'll call on each public speaker in the order of their hands raised. Please stay within the time limit established for today's meeting, and a countdown timer will be shown on the screen. If you're connected live on Zoom, the timer is accurate with no delay. Today's meeting is also streamed live on the city's YouTube account at youtube.com/City of Monterey with about 10 seconds delay, and on Comcast channel 25 with up to 90 seconds delay. And as always, we look forward to receiving your public comment.
All right, well done. Now we'll call the meeting to order. Will you introduce your caring city council, please?
Certainly. Councilmember Albert.
Here.
Councilmember Hoffa.
Here.
Councilmember Smith.
Present.
Councilmember Williamson. I haven't seen yet. And Mayor Roberson.
I'm here as well. So your final opening duty is to please show the flag for those who may be watching at home. The flag over Colton Hall.
Hang on 1 second. For some reason, it's not sharing. 1 second, please.
Oh, sure, that's fine. We'll just enjoy the beautiful weather outside, trees and.
What was that falling from the sky this morning?
Yeah, really, right? Not enough, but. Okay. You can just barely see the flag over the. That's weird. Yeah. That works, but so please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is that a?
I don't know.
All right, our first item of business is public comments, and this allows members of the public to speak a maximum of 3 minutes to the council about a subject within our jurisdiction, not on the agenda. If you'd like to share your thoughts on an agenda item, I request that you wait until that time. As always, you can leave a contact now or suggest at Monterey.org, and our amazing staff will always get back to you. without fail to follow up on any requests or information that you desire. So we'll open it up in the council chambers. Anything not on the agenda within the jurisdiction, please come forward and we'd love to hear from you. Just come on up. If you'd like to identify yourself, we'd appreciate that. And let's go.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Welcome,
my-
Mr. Clancy.
Yes. My name is Mike Clancy, and I currently serve as chair of the Monterey County chapter of Citizens Climate Lobby, CCL. CCL is a nonprofit, nonpartisan grassroots advocacy climate change organization, generally focused on national policies. CCL was founded in 2007 and is comprised of over 400 chapters and over 208,000 members in the United States. We have more than 200 members in the Monterey County chapter, with most of them living on the Monterey Peninsula. Speaking on behalf of the Monterey County chapter of CCL, and consistent with a letter I sent to the city manager on August 22nd, 2022, let me assure you that we are very much in favor of the proposal to place Tesla supercharger stations in the municipal wharf parking lot. The Monterey Peninsula is significantly underserved with EV charging stations, especially DC fast chargers, and this proposal will help close that gap. As you know, transition from internal combustion engine vehicles to electric vehicles is crucial for addressing the climate crisis, as the transportation sector is the largest source of carbon dioxide emissions in the US. And as we talked about last week in the City Council study session, supporting this transition as much as possible, including widespread and aggressive installation of EV charging stations for use by visitors and residents alike, must certainly be part of the City of Monterey's climate action plan. We also think the presence of EV chargers in the wharf parking lot will draw additional visitors and business to the wharf. Shopping malls over the country have found that the presence of EV charging stations in their parking lots is good for business. And we think that the EV chargers in question will be good for the business on the wharf. In addition, we think that these EV chargers will help bring goodwill to the community by reinforcing the image of Monterey as a progressive and environmentally sensitive city. Our only concern is the degree to which the proposed EV chargers will support non-Tesla EVs. We understand that Tesla announced plans in May of 2022 to equip its supercharger stations with the CCS connector, allowing DC fast charging for most non-Tesla EVs. However, as far as we know, these CCS-compatible Tesla superchargers have yet to be deployed in the US. We strongly recommend that you make CCS compatibility for all the Tesla superchargers to be installed at the wharf parking lot, a requirement for this project to proceed. Thanks for the opportunity to comment on this proposal, and good luck with this important project.
Good. Well, thank you, Mike, and for speaking, and also thank you for taking over that presidency of the local CCL. Yeah, really interesting meetings. Yeah, come on, welcome to our meeting.
Thank you. My name is Peter Skinner. I'm a member of the Cannery Row Rotary Club, and this is an interesting segue to the previous comments. I'm here to announce that we are sponsoring a countywide lithium-ion battery recycling day on November 12th. We will be holding 3 drive-through drop-off collection events, one in Monterey at MPC, a second one at the Sports Center in Salinas, and a third one at the Family Circuit Fitness Center in Soledad. The purpose of this event is to collect as many household lithium-ion batteries as possible. One of the reasons we're doing this is because, well, there are two primary reasons we're doing this. The first is that these are very dangerous batteries if mishandled. They cause fires if they end up in our waste stream. So if people put them into the recycling bin or the trash and it ends up in our landfill or our recycling facilities, it can cause a fire, and our waste agencies are concerned about this and pay attention to it and see fires on a weekly basis. The second reason we're focused on this is that the materials that are mined for the production of these batteries are scarce and often predominantly mined in regions that are unfriendly to our commerce, to the United States, Russia, parts of Africa, parts of South America. And not only that, but they're often mined in very environmentally destructive ways. So in addition to being unsafe and at risk, this is an opportunity for us to put them back, to mine the junk drawers of Monterey County and get lithium back into the product stream. What are lithium ion batteries? It's basically anything that you charge prior to using. So if you charge it on a routine basis, we all have these. Your phone, you've probably got one in your pocket right now. Phones, laptops, leaf blowers, electric toothbrushes, whatever. We will take the batteries. We will also take the product if you can't extract the battery from the product.
Okay.
So we hope that people will come by and bring us as many of their spent batteries as possible. I have flyers here, which I can make available, and you can read an article that is in the most recent weekly about this topic. Thank you.
Good. Well, thank you and your Rotarians for doing that. That's great service.
Thank you, Peter.
Appreciate that. As you were speaking, I was thinking now, how many of those lithium batteries do I need to gather up? Because they're everywhere.
You'll come see us at MPC.
Absolutely.
Okay.
What time was MPC again?
What time's MPC, Peter?
9 to 1. Okay, good. And let's be sure we can get that in our city update to let everybody know online that's going on. 9 till 3. 1. I'm
9
sorry.
to 1. You can stay and clean up afterwards if you want.
All right. Well, nice to see you, sir.
Hello,
Welcome.
Mayor and council members and staff. Good to see you all again. Again, you guys are always doing a great job around town. I appreciate it. Because of the last Hilltop meeting or in the mayoral debate, the topic came up regarding Cannery Row project, which we purchased back in July of 2017. And in light of the fact we finally just got some appellate court ruling movement just last week after a year and a half of stagnation. Just want to give you an update on the project because many don't know. We purchased the project in July 2017. We had checked with the Coastal Commission. All permits were in place. It was ready and to go forward with full entitlements. We got delayed then by a second group coming in. They had foreclosed on the property. We had the Liz pendants got expunged and it was a bunch of confusion apparently. But in the end, we got drawn into the court battle that was going on. They had lost in the bankruptcy court that there was no requirement of the lender to give them all kinds of title documents. Yet despite that ruling, they still went on to the other courts. And in Superior Court, they had another ruling. That judge made rulings that were quite bizarre. And after her ruling that she was going to rule in favor of this new entity that never paid a dime towards the first mortgage, which it bought subject to. She decided the property should go to them because she hated the lender so much. Never really getting a reasoning for that. Subsequent to that, she then decided to give them possession of the property. Normally, when you have all three members of this suit file for appellate court, that normally stays everything, but she decided to give them possession of the property, and yet our company, we still are responsible for the mortgage and the taxes as they collect all the money. Waiting for the appellate court, we finally got an approval that they're going to have oral arguments on January 5th, which means we should probably see a ruling come down by February, first part of February. Our great expectation is by real law and statute, we should have the property ourselves in control and get it back and have it fully. She's actually gone against state laws that we aren't even allowed to foreclose, which is our normal rights. We're not allowed to have a receivership is what the judge said, even though it's in the deed of trust. So we're really, our hands are tied, but we are moving forward. I just dropped off a check of $40-some thousand to the city because we want to have tolling on this. We're tolling it out because of the lawsuits. We are fully engaged in wanting to move forward. After we win this in February, we'll then go on and finish up with the Coastal Commission, which ministerially they had to issue that permit, but made a decision subsequent that they weren't going to do that. So our heart's in it, and that's just an update what's going on. I'm always available for questions or anyone in the community wants to know what's going on. We're going to try to build something that's good for the community and gets rid of that eyesore down there and make it something new and vibrant for Cannery Row. Thank you.
Thank you for the update. We have been wondering. Anyone else here in the chambers? Public comment? All right, I do see we have some folks online. So Clementine, would you go ahead and
Yes,
our online speakers to join us?
definitely. Looks like the first to call on is Marlana Brown. Hi, Marlana.
Good evening, everyone, Mayor, council members. I'm Marlena Brown. I'm representing the Naval Support Activity Monterey, the home to the Naval Postgraduate School, as most of you know. On behalf of the commanding officer, Captain Paul Dale, we wanted to thank the city's entire Public Works Department and particularly Marissa Garcia for coordinating so closely with the Navy last week during the water main repairs on Del Monte Avenue. We were able to alert our personnel quickly and efficiently, and ultimately our security team was able to execute appropriate logistics really smoothly and really with minimal mission impact. And we even had a few students and staff express their gratitude that they were given advance notice of the repairs. It helped them plan their commutes a lot better. I think this was a really great example of how good communication and cooperation in a continued relationship with the city of Monterey can really make a difference in the Navy's mission. And we really just wanted to thank you for that. So thank you.
Thank you. And let's see, next we have a telephone caller ending in 902. 902.
This is Nina Beatty. I wanted to comment on the disturbing announcement in the on the Monterey website today about their Monterey City stance toward Ukraine, and I wondered when this had come up for consideration before the council. I wonder what Monterey's stance is on Yemen and Afghanistan and Syria and Libya and Iraq and all the other countries where Washington and the military have caused such destruction. And I wonder where Monterey was in 2014 on Ukraine, when the US instituted its coup d'etat and removed the democratically elected leader, or where it's been for the last 8 years, when this illegal government has stripped civil liberties, banned political parties except ultra-nationalist ones, and committed genocide against people who aren't ethnic Ukrainian or simply wanted to protest the illegal government. 14,000 people have been killed as the Ukrainian military has bombarded towns and cities, schools, infrastructure, blocked water access, and they've been armed by the United States of America and NATO. Hundreds of thousands of people have fled Ukraine during that time. Did you welcome them into the city? This has been an ongoing horrible problem, and the world is on the brink of nuclear war caused by the US aggression and interference in Ukraine. And now the US is practicing dropping nuclear bombs in the current war games next to the Russian border. I wonder how we would feel if Russia or China or any other country was doing that in Mexico or Canada. Our president, our Congress ignored Russia's draft treaties to guarantee security in the region. Kiev, aided by the US, UK, and NATO, has massed 100,000 troops in eastern Ukraine, violating the Minsk agreements, shelling towns and cities on Russia's borders, and an impending attack in the first part of this year that threatened Russia's security. And after Russia had asked and asked and asked the US, asked Congress, asked Washington to guarantee its security, it launched its limited military operation. And then the US threw every armament it could into the mix, making it much, much worse. Monterey is ignoring the Nazi involvement, heavy involvement in Ukraine. And it's hypocrisy to talk about liberty and justice for all. You really don't mean that. You mean liberty and justice for America, Americans, and the people that support American corporations. You do not mean liberty and justice for the Iraqi people, the Syrian people, the Ukrainian people. And I'm just disgusted that we are supporting Nazis. My father fought in World War II to defeat Nazi Germany. And yet here's Monterey standing up to support a government infested with Nazis. This is horrific.
All right, thank you. And let's see, who do we have next? We have Chris Shake. Chris Shake.
Hello, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Oh. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Chris Shake, business owner on Fisherman's Wharf. Thank you for your time today. Just wanted to let you know again that I'm still not in favor of the EV charging stations that you're proposing to put in the waterfront parking lot. I feel like taking away, 17 public spaces and turning it into private ownership to service only Tesla cars is the wrong location. You should really consider other locations for these EV charging stations. And there are several other sites that you could consider, but I really strongly feel that the waterfront parking lot is not the place for these charging stations. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And next, we have another telephone caller ending in 500. Go ahead, please.
Yes, this is Wendy Brickman, and I'll concur with what Chris Shake just said. On behalf of the merchants of the Fisherman's Wharf Association, I'm calling once again about the planned use of 17 parking spaces for Tesla-only charging stations in the waterfront lot. We're definitely in support of the City Council's set value driver of protecting our environment, relating to your existing work program of expanding our network of EV charging stations, and also relating to the Council's objective to reduce transportation-related carbon emissions. Unfortunately, our Fisherman's Wharf Association Board still does not agree with your staff's finding for the proposed location in the waterfront parking lot, and we feel that you should still consider looking for alternative locations. We frequently look at the patterns of Tesla charging in the Del Monte Center parking lot, and we note that many times they're empty, and mostly people stay in the cars on the phone and do not patronize the businesses other than to maybe use the restroom. We understand that Tesla does not pay much money to Del Monte Center or others to have their charging stations at a parking lot site. And really, we don't believe you should be taking that many 17 parking spaces for Tesla-only charging stations either. It will turn that into a private parking lot for Tesla vehicles. And we still don't believe you need to be in any rush to implement this plan, as there are no state or federal regulations that require immediate installation. So we do hope that you can carefully take the time necessary to plan for a location that is not inside the waterfront parking lot. Thank you.
Thank you. And let's see who we have next. Esther Malkin. Go ahead, please.
Good afternoon. I just wanted to put a thank you out to Louis Marcuzzo and the City Park staff for replacing our playground equipment at the park with NCIB funds that were luckily not taken away because it's signed before the pandemic, and we just finally got it finished, and it's really, really nice, and the neighborhood appreciates it. And hopefully some of you will come by and take a look at it. I also remarks I would like to know what GPA is.
Not working today.
Sounds like we may have lost Esther. And I do not see any further hands raised at this time, Mr. Mayor.
All right, well then we'll close that part of the hearing. However, if Esther is able to reconnect, we want to be sure to give her 2 minutes. So we'll temporarily open public comment. I think that's only fair since we had a technical difficulty. All right, so we'll close that and get back to our consent item. I had a couple of comments on consent, nothing to be pulled, but of course, when we were looking at number 2, the Marina parking lot improvement project of over $3 million, the first thing that came to my mind, of course, was where's the money coming from? Thankfully, it's not coming from the general fund. And so the various funds that would go to this project include, here we go. We have a waterfront parking lot resurface restripe fund. marina structural repairs and replacement, waterfront parking lot resurface, restripe, measure PNS, which the voters approved, storm drains, Measure X. Thank you, Ed, on being on Tansy and helping getting that passed. And so there is quite a bit of funding for that, because when I first saw it, I thought, whoa, 3.2 million for obviously more than just resurfacing, totally rebuilding and environmentally sound. And likewise, when we were looking at the idea of joining a group of people to implement, what is 1383? Right, that's the one about all the recycling and the inspections and so on. Just made a lot of sense. And again, the funding is coming from the franchise fees that we all pay. So I was happy to see that those were fully funded, not out of the general fund, and that the city's prudent policies made sure we had money to pay for these projects. So I just wanted to highlight that. Anyone in the that we know of who wanted to pull this, anything from the public?
Not aware that anyone of the
Okay.
public wants to
Any
pull an
council
item.
Pull anything or comments?
Comment on number 2.
Yes, please.
And I'd like to have 5, which is the waste management memorandum. If I could ask a question or two on that.
Sure.
So if I can go to 2, as you just mentioned, the waterfront repaving. I'm just wondering if there is an opportunity as that project goes forward. It looks like there's a bid that is actually below the estimate from the engineer, which is great.
Yeah.
And I'm in favor of moving ahead with the project improvements, because I know this has been through several phases. I'm wondering about lighting and future power that may enable us to approach enhanced security for the area. As you know, we have a lot of businesses that come off of the wharf. It's also next to the recreational trail, and just thinking in terms of how we might approach this in the future. So from staff, if they
Yeah.
could address that.
Absolutely. Our public works director will make a way forward to address that. I just want to point out we had actually 3 bids that were below the engineering estimate, so that was pretty well estimated.
Unlike the conference center, when we opened that, remember the shock in the room?
Yes, we're a couple of millions short.
Yeah.
This one, yes, okay.
So we
perfect.
welcome our remarkable public works director. Hello.
Thank you, Mayor Roberson, council members. So we do have enhanced lighting, not only at the intersections, but for the recreational trail as part of this project. Thankfully, we were under the engineer's estimate, but we did purchase the light poles and some other equipment ahead of time so that we could capture the prices. We know supply issues, everything has gone up. So that was approved earlier in the year. So part of the engineer's estimate did include some of the items that we already purchased. So we're not so much ahead. And then we're also planning for unforeseen conditions.
Okay. And I know we've got wide spaces there, that there's going to be some opportunity for any potential underground. And I'm sure that all these projects face the potential of pulling new lines or new, power sources and all that. So I'm sure, because you're a great engineer, that's all part of the possibilities of future adaptations.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Yes, so we have all the conduits are going to be underground, and we're going to put additional underground conduit for communications also.
Okay,
As
great.
part of the project.
Super. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And you wanted to comment about the
Yeah, on the
Number
memorandum.
6,
Yeah,
okay.
it's number 5, the
5.
adoption.
Yeah.
Yeah, adoption of the resolution to execute a memorandum of understanding. I'm guessing that this has been staff negotiations, and we are required as part of the membership of the agencies to adopt this. But I just need to know a little bit more in terms of what is the impact of this MOU that we have with waste management. And then once this comes out, when is the next time we look at rate adjustments or increases? So it's more of a process question about the MOU. I agree, we have to have it,
but what does this do to our near term, next year and year after that would impact user rates?
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Smith. Last week, Wednesday, you all loved Ted Terrazas because he talked so eloquently about climate change. So Ted will answer that question. I can share with you, though, that last year, when we adjusted the franchise fees for Monterey City Disposal Services, we had raised those rates also in anticipation of those costs. And so they were already considered at that time when we adjusted the franchise fees. And with that, I asked Ted to add a lot of more wisdom to my answer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council, and thank you, Hans, for clarifying that as well. And that is accurate. In anticipation of SB 1383, we did recognize that there were going to be several costs and programs placed upon municipalities all throughout the state. And anticipation of that did move forward with some rate increases and adjustments in our franchise agreement to account for some new programs and activities that were going to take place because of 1383. So those basically the costs we're seeing in the MOUs right now have already been reflected in past rate increases. And so far, we've been able to keep the costs under what we had originally anticipated in the first couple of years of this MOU. So when we talk about costs, we're talking about things like the going to check do lid flipping, they call it, or do contamination monitoring on waste routes, to do edible food recovery projects, to procure compostable material and things of that nature. So the best way we found to meet these requirements was to band together through our region Monterey technical advisory committee and split the costs up through municipalities that way and try to get the best potential deal we could for all of these various parts of SB 1383. So that's really what the MOU is about now, and clarifying the cost for this this current fiscal year that we're the activities we're completing to meet SB 1383.
Great. Good. I noticed Clementine, do you have your hand up?
I do, just because we did get a hand raised to speak on consent, and we also had Esther Malkin join the meeting again if we wanted to give her that time.
All right. Any other questions, council comments on consent? All right, then let's go ahead and get public comment on the consent, and also give Esther 2 more minutes since we lost her previously.
Sure. So this is a telephone caller on consent ending in 902. I believe this is Ms. Beatty.
Yes, I'd like to comment on consent item number 8 of the contract with Dudek. I don't know, I read what was available online, the report. This will involve projects done in the city, and therefore those projects will fall under CEQA. And I request that the city require that there's a plan submitted before they do anything on this proposal of wildfire, whatever they're going to do regarding wildfires, because the projects that are just named in the agenda report, this will affect the environment. And I'm disturbed that at the last Planning Commission meeting on the old Capitol site, the city ignored substantial environmental issues that will cause degradation to the environment and stress the forest and cause increased fire danger, not less fire danger. It's really strange that people move to the forest and complain about fire danger, much of which is created by humans. Humans build flammable houses and wonder why their homes are at risk. They allow, as I have brought to the city before, flammable smart meters to be installed in their buildings that have caused many fires. And that's a fire danger that's easy to get rid of, and yet the city has not done so. You don't make a forest healthier and more fire resilient by degrading it. Drones with remote sensing or LiDAR are harmful to the environment, are harmful to forest and vegetation. Forest thinning is harmful to the environment. It creates a less safe forest, less safe for everyone. And invasive plant removal it just doesn't make sense to me. The humans are the ones that have invaded this forest area and created the fire danger. You will have more resilient plant growth or even desertification if you strip out understory. And understory's habitat, have the fuel, what's being called fuel, reminds me of a hammer that thinks everything is a nail. People are calling habitat, the vegetation, the shrubs that are the homes for plants, for birds, insects, reptiles, are calling that fuel. That's habitat. And the loss of that has been caused by humans, and it's creating an unsafe environment for the forest. The forest ecosystem is a whole system. And when you start tinkering with that ecosystem, you start having more, it becomes more, less resistant to fire. Wind-driven embers are the most common cause of fire. As evidence, we've seen many photos of the ashy remains of houses surrounded by green forests. Building standards that require fireproof roofs and resistant paints and finishes is just the beginning of the things that need to happen to the homes in this area. So I hope that this DUDEC contract involves looking at the humans, putting humans under the microscope and saying, what are we doing with regard to the buildings and the plans that we make in the city that create fire? And those things, fireproof roofs have to be essential everywhere here.
Thank you. And hold on one second. I'm going to change my timer setting to bring Esther for her remaining 2 minutes. Hold on one second. Okay. Esther, are you with us?
Yes, thank you for the opportunity to finish my comment. I don't know what happened there. So I was in the middle. I think you may have heard me thanking Louis and the park staff for the work that they did over here at the park with the playground equipment. I also wanted to mention that the neighborhood board would like to know when the next JPA meeting is scheduled for. We're somewhat concerned on how long this park project has continued to be extended, and with the changes coming up in the council, we want to make sure that there isn't an additional gap in there on getting caught up or figuring out what's going to happen with whoever it is that is going to be assigned to be our representative on the JPA. And lastly, I just want to echo previous comments about the Tesla charging stations. I often visit the wharf and park there, and I will never be a Tesla owner. And I resent that somehow, along with everything else in society and the direction that our city goes in, that the moneyed and the people who can afford Teslas, who can afford the extraordinary rents here, are somehow being given some extra favors to be able to continue their lifestyle while so many of us are struggling, that work down there as well as in other parts of the city that can barely pay our rents, let alone ever own a Tesla. So I agree that we need to have some charging stations, but to dedicate that many of them to the Tesla owners only is elitist, and I agree with the previous speakers on that. Thank you.
Okay, well, then we'll officially close public comment now that we've got that squared away. And also, if there's any comment in the audience on consent, don't see any. So then we'll close public comment on the consent agenda. Back to the council.
I'll move to approve consent.
Second.
All right, roll call, please.
Councilmember Hophead,
Yes.
Councilmember Albert,
Aye.
Councilmember Smith,
Aye.
Councilmember Williamson,
Yes.
and Mayor Roberson.
Yes, that passes 5-0. And I really did enjoy the discussion and public comment on our consent. A lot going on, especially in climate action. All right, so our one public appearance is to report and provide direction to staff on the process for filling the city council vacancies. And so without too much further ado, we'll go to staff, but it's very interesting because of our charter. As of November 9th, 2 council members will no longer be in office, even though normally we need to certify Liz Cheney, for example, is still the congresswoman from Wyoming, even though she lost the election. It's not until people are sworn in normally. But in this case, because of the charter, November 9th, two of our members who are running for mayor no longer have their council seats. So that's kind of an anomaly, which creates a little bit of timing problem. And so subsequently, there'll be 3 council members left. And for example, me as retiring mayor, I'm still the mayor until it's certified the first meeting of December and people are sworn in. And why aren't council members still on the council? That's strange. You might want to think about cleaning up some of the charter language in the future. So given that, I think the staff's been thinking, what do you want them to do between now and December 6th when a new council is sworn in, especially how do you fill a vacancy? As we know, Dr. Kim Barber ran unopposed, therefore is our District 1 council member. But there would be still 1 council seat at large. They're currently represented by Councilmember Dan. So that's the one, and there's a clock that ticks as well. So the council has 40 days as of November 9th, is my understanding, not December 6th, which would make more sense when the new council is sworn in. So with the clock ticking, I'm thinking, give us some direction. How can we help the new council so they hit the ground and they have applications in and they're ready to go rather than starting on December 6th and the clock runs out, you don't get to interview anyone. And then it's chaos, and ultimately the mayor would make the appointment because there's no time frame on that. 1983 actually ended up appointing Teresa Canepa to the city council when we deadlocked 2-2. And once again, you'll have to read my memoirs to hear about all the background on that. So back to our renowned city manager, Hans. And by way of introduction, I tried to figure out basically staff saying, what can we do to help you going forward on that empty seat especially?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. You took my introduction from me, and
that's my job.
And I know that Today Finance renewed my Amazon business access on behalf of the city, so I will order your book already. So with that, I hand it over to our city clerk. We have tried to put this all into some digestible slides to help council find maybe a solution that you can recommend tonight to help us and help the city to figure out how we are appointing the at-large council member seat that will be also vacant after the election. So with that, our city clerk, who is our election official, will present to you our staff analysis and our recommendation.
Hi, I can't see any of you while I present, so I wish I could be looking right at you, but I'm going to tell you about the potential processes for filling these 2 city council vacancies.
Clemens, we all left the room, that's okay.
And the topics I'll cover are the vacancies themselves, our appointment timeline, and it is a time crunch, as you mentioned. Some ways that the council may identify potential appointees, some ways council may review potential appointees' suitability once they are identified, and some additional options if an application process is selected, and then we will ask for your direction. So as you mentioned, we do have a section of our charter, which was put in place by a citizen initiative back in the 80s to require any council member who decides to run for mayor to step down from their seat just following the election. So beginning November 9th, the day after the election, we will have 2 vacancies. The Councilmember Williamson seat, which is an at-large representing seat with a term to end December 22, because Councilmember Williamson did run in year 4 of a 4-year term. And then Councilmember Albert ran in year 2, at the end of year 2 of a 4-year term. And so that one has a longer vacated term to fill, but they're both at large seats and they both begin November 9th. And so here's the timeline that we're looking at. November 8th is election day. That's just a week from now. And November 9th, the 2 seats are vacated. leaving 3 remaining council members, and that 40-day period starts that the charter specifies for council to appoint. Estimated for December 6th will be election certification and swearing in of the new councils following the election results. It could not be December 6th, but it's likely, but we do have to rely on the council, or sorry, excuse me, on the county registrar of voters for that. And so we're a little bit at their whim. Their deadline is December 8th. At that point, when we do swear in the new council, we'll have 4 members. December 19th is the end of the 40-day period. So that is the deadline for council to appoint to fill the term vacated by Councilmember Albert. And then beginning December 20th, the charter does say if the council doesn't appoint within 40 days, then the mayor does. So that would start December 20th if the council has not appointed. So just diving into the sort of easier vacancy, that is the less than a 1-month one vacated by Councilmember Williamson. So the options there are you could leave the seat vacant until Dr. Barber is installed with the election certification, or you could also appoint sometime before that time. The trickier one with a much harder time crunch is the Councilmember Albert vacancy. That's the one where the term will be about 2 years, ending in December 2024, when that election is certified. And the vacancy options here are, as I mentioned, the council can appoint within 40 days, or the mayor can appoint after 40 days. And so a number of options for how to find people to consider appointing. The council members could nominate residents with no application required. That's one option. Another option that's pretty commonly used is an application process. And the last vacancy that I found in researching this in Monterey was in 2004 when Councilmember Ruth Breland passed away, and an application process was used by the council at that time. So some options to review potential appointees once you know of some. You could use the council policy for appointing commissioners that we use for all of our boards and commissions, where the mayor receives applications, interviews the applicants, and makes a recommendation to council, and then council makes the ultimate appointment. You could create an advisory ad hoc committee that would consist of less than a quorum of council, so 2 members and nobody else, and that is not subject to the Brown Act. You could hold public interviews or receive public presentations in a public meeting. So a couple of main options that staff identified, and there are other options we could come up with, but these 2 main ones kind of boil it down to one that maximizes the use of the limited time we have available. We have holidays coming up, numerous holidays because of Veterans Day, as well as the Thanksgiving holiday. And it's all in this tight time frame, which I will point out, it's all calendar days. Those 40 days are calendar days, so that doesn't even include weekends. So this option that would maximize the use of that time is that the current council with us right now could task us with starting the applications process as soon as the vacancy begins on November 9th. We would collect the applications according to the method that you select and bring them to the new council once they are sworn in, presumably December 6th or shortly thereafter. And then the new council could review those applications and use the remaining time before the deadline to appoint, or else the mayor would appoint. The other option has more of a time constraint, which is you could elect to task the new council with the entire process beginning when they are installed. And so that would give, assuming that they are installed on December 6th, that would give about 13 days to act, which includes weekends, as I mentioned. And that would be to do everything desired, such as release applications, review, interview applicants, and make an appointment, or the mayor appoints. So if you did like the idea of receiving applications, there are a few further options to consider. You could think of this like a menu at a restaurant where you can order one thing, you can order everything on the menu, you could make a custom order, but presumably you would have an application form, which we could use the Monterey Boards and Commissions application form. I provided a few examples from other cities in the packet. I also have the example that we did in 2004 for the Ruth Freeland vacancy, and that was a fairly simple form that required other add-on items. So a few add-on items that are possible. One city I'm aware of, Pasadena, down in Southern California, they collect nomination signatures, which is mirroring the process that we use for elective candidates. That's part of the elections code, and each candidate on our ballot receives at least 20 verified signatures of Monterey voters. You could also require a candidate statement of qualifications, which also mirrors the process used for elective candidates, where each candidate writes no more than 200 words to describe why they think they are qualified for the position. And that is of note, that's something that was on the Ruth Freeland vacancy application. And then you could also require letters of recommendation. I'm sure there are other things you could add here as well. You could be creative. So our recommendation and our request for you today is that you let us know how you'd like to proceed with both of these council vacancies. The Councilmember Williamson vacancy, it's a very short one. We just need to know, do you want to appoint to fill it or just wait until the 1 month from now, approximately the time that the seat is filled by the voters? And then for the Albert vacancy, we would need a little further detailed direction. So that's my presentation, and I can answer questions.
All right, thank you, Clementine. That was very thorough and also clearly presented. Questions before we go out for public comment?
Could we have her go back to the options slide? I
Yes,
think that might,
option A and B slide,
yeah,
please.
I think that would be handy to review again.
Just leave that up there and.
Yeah.
Yeah, then when we discuss it, we'll have that, yeah.
Yeah.
I do have a question for him.
Okay, anything else? Or you
No,
want
I just
to?
want to see that.
Councilmember Dan has a question, Clementine?
Clementine,
Okay.
thank you for presenting this to us. I have a question about the timeline between December 6th and December 19th.
Okay.
December 6th, we review the applications, and then we come up on the 19th and make a decision. Is there a time that we could, or can we have would there be a special meeting before if it looks like the next week, if it looks like we have really good candidates, but we wanted to discuss more? And then at that special meeting in the charter, does that special meeting allow us to appoint a council member, or do we have to appoint on the 19th?
So the 19th isn't actually, let me look at my calendar to be sure, but I'm pretty sure the 19th is a Monday.
Yeah.
In fact, I have a calendar slide. Let me show you, because then we can visualize all this. So here's November, the vacancies are effective the 9th, and then here's what December looks like. The 19th is a Monday. This gives this amount of time, if you chose that option, to review applications and do that process. And then this is a firm deadline in the charter for appointing. So starting on the 20th would be when the mayor would appoint.
So can I
Yeah,
clarify the
Yeah,
question,
that's what I was thinking.
Mayor? So
Yeah,
I
are
think
you
the
okay,
question
Ken?
was,
Yeah, I got the answer.
Got it. Okay.
got
I think the question was, can it be on a special meeting or does it
Oh.
be a regular meeting?
Yeah.
Oh, it could be a special meeting.
It can be a special meeting or it
Yeah.
can be regular.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
Well, the reason I brought up that question is if we do have a meeting, it looks like on the 13th that we've all come to a consensus. Can we vote on the 13th instead of the 19th at a special meeting to announce or to appoint? Can we do that?
Sure. So nothing has to happen on the 19th. That's just the very last day that you
Right.
can. You could appoint earlier.
Okay, great. Thank you. At a special meeting.
good question. The future council may have to do that, especially if the future council wants to interview the applicants. And I would suggest you do that, but we'll get into that later.
One last question.
Yes.
So on the 19th, if we can't come to a conclusion and the mayor makes the decision, is there a timeline for the mayor to make that decision?
I'm not aware of a timeline for that.
Nope.
Chrissy, if there's anything I missed, but I'm not aware of a timeline.
That's correct. There is no deadline for the mayor.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, you could have a 4-member council for a year and think of all the 2-2 votes, right? Might behoove the future mayor to make that appointment as soon as possible.
Yeah, I would assume.
You would think. Oh, let's take some public comment, please. We have anyone in the council chambers want to speak to this? All right, seeing no one, it looks like we have a couple of hands raised, 2 or 3 hands raised. So Clementine, the show is yours. Go ahead and allow our good public to speak online, please.
Yes, looks like we've got Kent Glenzer to go first.
Okay. You'll have to unmute.
Go ahead, please.
Hi, I'm unmuted. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to talk with you all. I only want to make a public comment about not the possibility of a 1 month discrepancy with current council person Williamson, but about the 2-year discrepancy. And I just want to urge the city of Monterey, because I think according to current practice, everybody, what I'm hearing and what I'm reading is everybody's talking about the council or the mayor making this kind of decision about filling a 2-year vacancy. I think that's really wrong. And I really think that I just really encourage y'all to form some kind of a citizens committee, an ad hoc committee, to actually look at candidates to fill a 2-year appointment rather than have it be the council and or the mayor. Sorry, I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, Kent.
Hello, can you all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Sorry, I wasn't unmuted. I'm sorry, Esther. I called on you when I was muted, so it didn't.
Okay.
Go ahead, please.
We're just not on track today, you and me, Clementine. So I wanted to echo what Kent just mentioned, but I also want to encourage the staff to recommend to the council that, given that my district and the other one on this side of the city have not had any representation on the city council and won't have an opportunity to have one for another 2 years, that whatever course of action is decided to be the way you're going to appoint or come up with someone to take these positions, that they be limited to the districts that are not already represented, for them to at least have 2 years of representation. So I think that would be fair and equitable and expected from those of us on this side of the city, so that we have some satisfaction that we did not get by the way the districts were not only created, but how they were sequenced. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And next, let's hear from Jean Resch.
Thank you. I think Kent has a real good idea to put it out to the community. If you don't, though, let's concede that the council will nominate someone qualified, and our 2 mayoral candidates are sensible people and strong people, and they can form coalitions on the council. They can get 3 votes or appoint the vacancy themselves. So if we don't put it out to the citizens, let's just concede right now that the new mayor is going to be the key person on who this vacancy is going to be filled by. And let's not make it too hard on the applicants. We should either put it out to the community and hope that Mayor Williamson or Mayor Albert will honor that selection, or just concede now that the mayor is going to control it and yield to that, make it simple, make the application simple, and and yield to those political forces. I hate to see the applicants waste a lot of energy applying and being interviewed, going through any kind of nomination process when it's going to come down to the mayor will get the person that the mayor wants. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And next, a telephone caller ending in 204. Okay, go ahead, please.
Good afternoon. Tom Raleigh from Fisherman's Flats neighborhood. Esther Melkin's call in and about representation is right on the money. And yeah, I hope that whatever you do, simplify the steps as much as possible. It is the holiday season, and we do need to have a full council as soon as possible. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And Mr. Mayor, I don't have any further hands raised on Zoom.
Okay, I see that. So we'll close the public comment section of this. And Clementine, put up option A and B again, please. That slide was helpful. Whoops. Hello there.
No, that's perfect.
Who turned out the lights?
Can you see it?
Yes.
All right.
Whoops. Yes, okay, good. If you all don't mind, I have a little bit of experience in this.
Yeah.
Going back to 2004, when we were going to appoint Bruce seat, we did create a subcommittee. And in hindsight, of 2 people, in hindsight, I think it should have been the full council who did the interviews and recommend of the applicants. And on the water board, the water management district recently went through this process, had an application, and the entire board actually interviewed the people who had applied, asked questions. Always important to me, ask the same question if you can of each candidate. And at that point, at that meeting, actually did make an appointment. I thought that went well. And then the whole idea of, I think, an application, when you look at the applications for boards and commissions, people list their experience, and a lot of them do take the time to make a statement, which I would encourage any applicant to do, why they want to be a council member and why they're qualified. I think I would probably leave it at that, and then let the council do the interview. And I'm sure some of you've been on boards. I think you've done with the school board. Did you do that too? And I know Dan, and you probably on various boards too have done that. So that's the way that's the way I see it happening. And so, and at this point also, there's a question of, do we appoint Kim Barber for a month? Well, we might not even have a November 15th meeting. So I don't see the point of going through all that.
Yeah.
So I think we would want to concentrate on the at-large seat. So that's kind of my thinking. What are you all thinking for as far as staff? Go start. Ed, go
Yeah,
ahead.
I want to do this kind of in a couple different parts because it is, there's several steps here. Number one, I want to say, I think Kim Barber should come on at the same meeting where everyone else is sworn in. And I think this is a ceremonial thing. And I think in all fairness to her, she had a campaign. Nobody ran against her. Nobody ran against me either. But she holds the seat for District 1, and I don't want to diminish her experience. I think it should involve that occurring at the same time when the new mayor is sworn in and the new appointment is sworn in or considered. But I think Kim Barber should be part of that, and I don't want to rush her to the seat, but I think the December 6th date seems like that's where she should arrive and have her ceremony and be part of the process for the interview of consideration of new council members. Because I don't see anything that's pressing for a November 15th meeting where we need to have her rush in. And I just think that that's a special night. There's a lot of people that will be here. And I think that we should afford her that consideration for December 6th. And then I want to listen to others before I have comments on the other elements.
Mr.
Mayor, so yeah, I agree. I think it doesn't make sense to appoint Kim Barber a month early. She'll be sworn in on November 8th, if I'm looking at
Six.
or 6th.
December 6th.
And I just think that's, we're not going to do anything that crazy, I don't think, in the second meeting of the month. So I don't. As for the other decision, I don't believe that it's an option under the charter for us to sort of create a community committee or something like that, as the public was asking. I just don't think that is permissible. So it's either going to be the council or the mayor. I think it's better if the council can decide. And if the council can't, if it ends up being a 2-2 thing and the council can't compromise, can't find a candidate, then the mayor will decide. The new mayor will decide. So I think that, but first of all, I just want to say this will work out. It's not the end of the world. It's not that big of a deal. This will work out. As far as the options, I think option B doesn't give the new council enough time. It's just not enough time for them to do all of it. And getting the application process going, this council doing it, again, it's really not that big of a deal. We direct staff to advertise. And Mr. Mayor, your suggestions as far as having a statement, a written statement, basically outlining their qualifications and then why they want to run, what they'd like to accomplish or why they want to run. I think that makes sense. And then I think the new council would interview them, and the public would be here or have the opportunity also to speak after the candidates or applicants would speak. Council could ask questions, and then the public could weigh in, and then council could deliberate. So I think that should be the process, and I think it'll work out fine.
Councilmember Dan?
I agree with you on that, Alan, except for a couple of thoughts. One is that if the council decides that they're going to interview, then I don't think that can get done in one council meeting with the decision, because you'll interview applicants and then you have to discuss, then you have to make the decision. So that's why I asked the question. You probably will need, as a matter of fact, I know you'll need another meeting for that, because I remember. Yeah, that's true. That's true. The second thing is that getting input from the community, I suggest that just like in the application process of becoming a candidate, that we do require some signatures. That tells us that there are people in the public that support this particular candidate. And that's just like a recommendation of some type. And I know that when we do pull papers in July and turn them in August, it's almost a month. So I think that a person can collect enough signatures, obviously, within 2 or 3 weeks in order to turn them in. And I think that just shows that the person is very serious about being a council member for a great city of Monterey. That's my suggestion.
Good. Councilmember Tyler?
I think my only input would be that more in regards to process and what the council is considering, whether or not there's a meeting, a second meeting in November, or whatever it looks like the agenda is in December, that all decisions be deferred until we have a full council installed, unless it's like an emergency. But that would be my only input to this process. And I'm open to, it sounds like we're going into a direction of having Kim wait until the regular council meeting in December. And I'm good with the process in regards to how the rest of the council discussed it.
Yeah, and I think on your comment about having a regular November 15th council meeting with 3 people, we could give ourselves giant raises, those of us who are left. No, that's controlled by state law, actually.
Yeah.
But right, I think, and staff knows that if there's something that's really time sensitive that has to be done in November, that would be the only reason to call a special meeting that I could see.
Yeah, usually it's a light meeting anyway.
Right, but we want to just, if there's, I think there are a couple of things going through. Hans, you could help. There's this ordinance that we passed. We want to do a second reading of the California Building Code.
Yes, there are two items tonight. The ordinance reading has to be reread at the next meeting, whatever that is. It could be a special meeting just to have that second reading. And what is there something else? Say again? Yeah, and the successor agency, I'm sorry, yes, there's a second item that is time sensitive,
Time
so
sensitive.
that would warrant a meeting, it could be just a special meeting, but that's all what is on there. So basically, continuation of the ordinance, so we can get it into effect after 30 days, meaning January 1st. And then the successor agency item that has to be also dealt with prior to.
Probably be a 5-minute
Yeah.
special meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sure.
Good. Right. And okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I was
Councilor.
gonna concur. It's sort of a hybrid of the comments, and I think you're right, Alan. I think it's gonna be okay because
Yeah.
anybody who wants to step up and dive into this position, it's excellent. Great companions to work with every other Tuesday and many meetings. The pay's lousy, but that's okay. That's not what we expect. But I think that it will be okay because we'll have very earnest applicants.
Yep.
So I want to break it down just a little bit and say that I think that the process, I concur that the application process can be modified a little bit. It's already pretty much in place with our boards and commissions. But I think that if we use that same process, I think that there's one thing I agree, Mr. Albert, you brought it up, and I think it makes sense, and that's to land on a number of 20, where they go out and they get
Yeah.
20 people,
Council.
that they get 20 people from, so this is a citywide position, so a citywide 20 people, where they actually verbalize, knock on doors, and that's part of the packet. I think that that's fair. And here's the validation piece. The future council on December 6th is going to have the packet, and we're going to look at the qualifications in the statement, and we're going to see their signatures. We know that they're going to work to put that packet together, and then in all consideration, the new council will review that, and maybe there's 3, maybe there's 10. If there's 10, we build the meeting around it, and we do a second meeting to make that decision, and then there's that week that we have time to be able to do that. So we're not up against the 19th deadline. So I think that we have to make the decision on the process that makes sense. And I think it makes sense to have the application include 20 signatures and an explanation of what why they want this position and what they hope to accomplish. And I just have this one extra piece that I think it needs to be included. And that's, we all serve on boards outside of the city council. I think there needs to be a statement in that application process that they realize that there is not just every other Tuesday as a meeting. That's not just it. There are the other commitments. So I think that should be included in the application process.
Right.
And then we get the packet on the Friday before, December 6th. We've got that process, and Kim Barber is part of that process, and she will also participate in the questions and interviews, the review of the packet. And then depending on the numbers, like we've said, we may make the decision December 6th. And if there's a lot of candidates, which I think would be awesome, then we may have to manage the time and have a second meeting to make that selection. But I think that's enough I have to say on the process. But I think the 20 signatures and statements, very similar to what we do when we pull papers, and additions to the application to include the statement of outside boards and commissions, and definitely the right question that provides for them to make the statement of why and what they plan on, or what are their agendas for their accomplishments in that 2 years.
Sure. You absolutely want to know. Do you need a motion, or do you have a pretty clear, I hear clear consensus?
I
What do you
really
need
like-
to help you as a staff?
Yeah, I always like a
Matt.
motion, and if I may say so, a motion would be helpful.
All right.
And second, I just wanted to verify, when you talk about 20 people who are submitting their signatures as support,
Yeah.
we as staff would suggest that you require them as registered voters.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And just wanted to clarify that because
Validated.
none of you have said that yet. So we want 20 registered voters from Monterey.
And they're at large, not any one district. It's
Yeah,
at large.
they are at large.
And verified through the county register of voters.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's
So I'll make a motion that we direct staff to I guess, advertise for applications to fill the at-large seat. That the application process would include 20 verified signatures of registered voters from the city of Monterey. And a statement of interest that would include qualifications and rationale for why they are interested in this. And gosh, is there anything else?
And they understand they serve on outside.
And that there would be interviews by the council after the new council is seated.
Are we requiring a written resume? Or is
Well, I
the-
said a
is the
statement
candidate
of, a
statement-
candidate statement.
is
And
there-
I think that the
is there a
form,
number
the form
on the
has,
candidate statement?
I don't think we want,
resume.
well, okay, let's just make that, is somebody willing to second that? And then we can
Yes,
kind of.
yeah, I'll
okay.
second that.
So as far as like, I think how many words, I don't think we necessarily want to get into that personally. I think, I mean, I guess you could set a maximum limit, but just in terms of how much we want to read, but you know, maybe 1,000 words maximum. I don't know, but
That's fine. I
Well, let me,
can-
let me
but-
just say it in case somebody's watching that's considering applying. We complete no more than 200-word candidate statement. And then certainly this is going to include portions of where they can put their resume, what type of business, what they do, their education, because that's already on the boards and commissions form.
yes, it is.
And, and I second that.
so you're saying then they would also do basically the same form as the boards and commissions form too, right, Ed?
Oh, yeah, but the city's going to have to modify the questions where it's reflective of city council candidate.
Right.
Clementine?
Yes, so I just shared while you were talking about it, I shared the board and commission application on the screen. Are you seeing it?
Yeah.
Yep, yeah.
And so here's the question that leaves a space for writing and I would put on the city council, but please list in the following space your relevant education, work experience, public service, and or volunteer experience and other experiences that would enhance your service and effectiveness on the city council.
That's fine. And does that have a word limit or anything like that specified or not? Clementine?
She's frozen.
Not that I know of, and
I'd say let's just leave it at that then.
Okay.
Let's just use that. And
I'm good with that.
yeah.
it's never been a problem with the applications, I don't
Well,
think.
you're going to find out as you put out this is going to be easy. It should be because someone who's applying for this position better know how to fill out a form and they're going to want to sell themselves, right? And they're going to obviously be committed. And so it will take care of itself. And then if you get an applicant says, I want to be a council member, period. Well, that pretty much tells you versus somebody,
Yeah.
right. And so it will take care of itself. We've all been on the subcommittee appointing people and every application's been very thorough. Excellent.
If I can, I just want to the public that may be watching, I think, I don't want to speak for Councilmember Dan who brought the idea up, but I agree with it. The idea of having applicants get signatures is to try to normalize the process similar to what the elected council members and mayor have gone through. It shows a level of commitment to go out and get those signatures. It also requires you to talk to your resident, talk to other residents. And sometimes people let you know what qualities or issues they think are important. It can be very informative talking to people as you're getting those signatures. So I think that's the rationale, is to try to make it sort of more comparable. It is a 2-year term. It's a pretty significant and serious appointment. So we want to make it as similar as we can. If we could, I would say, let's go out to an election, but it sounds like that's really not part of this, our options either. So.
Well said, Alan. That's exactly what I said.
And again, we're always advised to get 30 signatures to make sure 20 are certified. Yes, Ed.
Yeah, just to comment to some of the callers that were observing this, thank you for your inputs. But this is kind of the option A, but we've added some things to it to bring some clarity of what our desire is for staff. But there's just not enough time to go out and put together citizens ad hoc. Because I know that it just takes an enormous amount of time to just manage schedules to get people into a room to be able to get this process. But we do encourage people to participate with the input when they will come here December 6th and participate. But this is a unique timeline. It's a unique thing that happens only so much so that because we're in a transition from the previous type of elections we had that was citywide to district elections. So this isn't something that happens every election. It's only because we're in the transition piece from the former to the districts.
That's a good point. That did throw a little wrinkle in the whole thing.
Yeah, so it threw a little wrinkle, and there's a tight timeline that's statutory. So I think this is the right motion and the right pathway.
Just one clarification in the motion. Do we have the actual date when they can pull papers? Is it November 9th?
Yes.
Okay, it's in the motion. Okay.
So
Yes.
how long will it take staff to have
November
it
9th.
advertised? So how long will it take staff to be able to push out the application and announce to?
We'll have it ready on November 9th to make the announcement. And I think preliminary, we're looking at a deadline right now, preliminary of Sunday, November 27th to have all the applications together, verify the signatures and have them ready for December 2nd, the package.
Yeah, makes sense.
We discussed November 28th potentially with the feedback from city attorney on having it be on a Monday, not a Sunday. So, but we do need at least 3 to 4 days for the register of voters to verify signatures before the packet would be released on Friday, November 2nd, so that everyone gets December 2nd, I'm sorry, for the packet.
And I would think people who are knowledgeable and want to be a council member probably have already decided and they're ready to go. I don't think someone's going to say, oh, there's an opening, maybe I'll run for council. It doesn't work that way. You don't know. That's what happened to me. It's in my memoirs. I was sitting in the back of the room in 1981 representing the Monterey Vista Neighborhood Association and watching the council, and I went home and told my wife, I said, I'm running for council. I hadn't the faintest idea I was going to do that. And I went home and I picked her up off the floor and she said, good, I support you 100%. Tyler, did you want to make a final comment? Okay. Good discussion. I think it's going to be a great process. All right, a roll call. And Clementine, once again, thanks you, staff, your entire staff, Nat, Hans, everybody for working on this.
Thank you. And so let's see, Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Albert,
Aye.
Councilmember Hoffa,
Yes.
Councilmember Williamson,
Yes.
and Mayor Roberson.
Aye. All right, I know we have closed session, but I don't want to preclude council or city manager reports. Council comments?
So I've got just a few, and then I want to yield time because I know this is important for others to have this time as well. Saturday, Councilmember Dan Albert and I attended the Rod and Rocks 20th annual festival on the Wharf Custom House Plaza. And we were asked to fill in for the mayor for the mayor's choice of the selection of the car. Mr. Albert and I agreed, and we selected a beautiful powder blue 1962 Ford Thunderbird convertible as the mayor's choice.
Nice.
Because I think we felt like if the mayor and Dottie were in that car, they would look fabulous in that car.
Now, when does that show up in my garage?
The owner of that car will give you a ride, and he's in San Martin, California,
All
so
right.
we can connect you. The other thing was Tamsi last week was the week before last, I'm sorry, on Wednesday, was the regular board meeting, and the highlights of that, we received an update on the EIR process that's ongoing for Highway 68 156, and the start of the South 101 improvements. So we have three major initiatives, in part because of Measure X, in part because of some state funding, some grants, but there's lots of information coming forward. And so there's habitat species on Highway 68 that's been done, EIR on all the rest. It's not yet done, but improvements are coming in 2023 and 2024. And we hope to see some major improvements in South 101 from Spreckles down to Greenfield, I believe it is. And we're trying to attack some trucking, traffic and off-ramp issues that is got some bad safety records. So we're looking forward to that solutions coming forward. We also, in that same meeting at TAMC, had an update. I think I mentioned this last week. The Central Coast Zero Emissions DKS consultants provided a very thorough feedback, and it's basically developing a strategy to assess, ID, and recommend locations where we need battery charging stations in San Luis Obispo and Monterey County. So we're looking forward to getting some results of that. And that's all I have for tonight.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Tyler.
Yeah, so at our Monterey One Water Board meeting last Friday, there was a vote where staff came in front of us regarding the expansion project and deciding whether or not we were still comfortable with moving forward with a bid for the construction of the expansion of Pure Water Monterey, contingent on a water purchase agreement being signed by all parties. And so by a weighted vote, the majority of the board gave staff the direction to continue moving forward with releasing the bid. So assuming that we receive approval from the CPUC, which is expected to come later this week, then I imagine that within a week period of time that all parties will have signed the water purchase agreement, and we may be out for bid later this month. So that's my update.
That's exciting.
It is exciting. Thank you.
Councilmember Dan?
Yeah. I just wanted to comment on the Rods on the Wharf. That is a fundraiser for Gateway Center in Pacific Grove, and it's been going on for 20 years, which Terry Wecker has been the one that's directed that, and it's been a great fundraiser for that particular nonprofit. Then also I attended MPC's 75th anniversary, put on by Monterey Peninsula College Foundation. As we know, MPC is a extremely important educational campus in our city. As a graduate of MPC, along with most of my family, it's a very important thing for a lot of students that don't go to four-year colleges. So thanks again, Alan, for being a part of that, and my brother too, by the way. And then I'd like to close in memory of Robert Reed, who's our city forester for 30 years, who passed away in September, I believe, but I don't think we just got notice of that. So Robert Reed helped Monterey High School with over 60 planted trees over the years that I was there and my father was there, and he was a wonderful man. We'll miss him.
Yeah, we will adjourn in his memory.
Thank you.
Councilmember Allen.
Just want to encourage anyone who hasn't voted yet, who's out there listening, make sure you exercise your right to vote.
Good reminder. City manager reports.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have on our website a new holiday event page that keeps track of all the events that are going on in our community during the upcoming season. And we also published a website helping refugees from the Ukraine. Over 7.5 million Ukrainians had to leave their country based on the war they have. And it's a website that basically shares points of help throughout California, and people can look this up. And I know that also the DLI is offering help with respect to language there. And thank you for remembering City Forester Robert Reed.
Good. Now, we will adjourn to closed session. And before we do that, several people spoke during public comments about closed session, which is fine. But also it's been the practice of the city to find out before we adjourn to closed session if there was anyone who wanted to talk about those items. I don't see anyone here. Anyone online who wanted to talk about our closed session that we know of? Clementine.
I see a hand raised right now. I'm not sure if it's for this item, but let's,
That would be the only item we would be discussing.
all right.
Closed session.
This is a telephone caller with the last three digits, 204. Oh, they have lowered their hand, so I think that may answer the question.
In memory of Robert Reed, and he was urban forester for many years, much respected and loved. Will it to the closed session? What, did I miss something?
We just had that 204 raise their hand again, and then we also have another hand. So
I believe if Esther wants to talk about closed session, she did that already. And I don't know unless there was something else. This is closed session comments.
okay, I
Okay.
think 204 may want to comment on that. Let's see. Go ahead, please. You can dial *6 to unmute. Go ahead.
Yes, good evening again, Tom Raleigh. I was calling in just specifically to register. I believe closed session item as good as a negotiator as John and Aldretti is. I really think that if the city council is considering putting aside parking spaces at the wharf parking lot for chargers is a bad decision. That there should be some other locations in the city that where chargers could be located. I know I called in before. I'm not sure that this is on the closed session agenda, but I think it would be a definite mistake for the future to give away. We've already lost some parking places at the wharf parking lot, and that is really key to the businesses down in the downtown area. So thank you very much.
Clementine, you're muted.
She's frozen.
All right, so again, we do the two closed session items are with respect to Tesla chargers and also conference with labor negotiators. And so again, I see that she's back.
Sorry about that. Something going on with Zoom for me today.
So I believe Esther's already spoken on that unless the other one. Clementine, would you recognize Esther? I guess she would be talking, she already talked about the Tesla, so we would invite if she had comments about the other closed session item, labor negotiations.
Okay.
Hi again. I just want, it's funny because I didn't know that that was the closed session when I spoke about the Tesla item, which I just wanted to recommend when you ask for input on the closed session comments, closed session items, that maybe you could say what they are, and then the public would know if they've commented on them already or not, so that we, often don't get as far down as seeing what's in the closed session. So that's just a recommendation that I have, because I literally had no idea that that was the closed session comment. I just made a comment because the other people did.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we will adjourn to closed session. Thanks, everybody.